All right, good morning. Good morning. Thank you very much for tuning in to Metro Television. Let me welcome you to Inside Pages. My name is Moro Awudu. Well, as expected, this morning it's all about the Vice President, His Excellency Dr. Mahmoud Bama. But before I even tell you what about him, let me just say that Inside Pages is a show that digs deeper into the pages of the big stories that have happened in the course of the week. We interrogate the issues, we bring in the right guests, and ask them the relevant questions. Now, as we all do know, the Vice President this week was in the Central Region, Kaswa specifically, during an orientation and training workshop for TESCON members. Initially, that's what it was built to become. But then at some point, the Vice President, was advertised that the Vice President was going to be delivering a speech. And later, there was more clarity that he was going to be talking about the economy, specifically taxation and government policies. So the Vice President then took advantage of that platform and walked Ghanaians through where we are in terms of the state of the economy, the causes of it, and going forward, some of the policies that government has put in place to be able to deal with the terrible nature of the economy, basically with the dire nature that the economy finds itself in. Now, we are going to be examining what, how, the where, and everything that has to do with the program, because issues have come up about the platform, issues have come up with the style and the framing and everything about this event. So we're going to be examining all of that with my resource persons when I come back. Once again, my name is Mo Raudu. We'll take a short break. When we come back, I'll give you the WhatsApp and the text line, and then I'll also introduce my guest. Stay tuned in. All right, so welcome back. This is Inside Pages on Metro Television. And as I did indicate, in case you just joined us, this morning we're dedicating it's our 2-hour show to that big event, which was addressed by the Vice President, His Excellency, Dr. Mahmoud Bamia. It was a TESCON program, TESCON Dankwa Institute's program, where there was supposed to be an orientation and training workshop for TESCON members. The Vice President graced that occasion and gave a lecture on the economy. Let's bring you some excerpts of what the Vice President said, reactions by Ghanaians, and then I will introduce my resource persons.
Factory policy has taken off with significant impact on the manufacturing sector. 106 factories have been completed and are operational, and 148 factories are under construction. And this represents, ladies and gentlemen, this represents the largest number of factories established under a government in Ghana since independence. The facilitation of the growth of an automotive industry is on course. Volkswagen, Suzuki, Sinotruk, Peugeot, and Toyota, and recently Nissan, have all established assembly plants in Ghana. Kia, Hyundai, and Renault are also on course to start production in Ghana this year. We have started the process of building the integrated bauxite and aluminum industry. The partner for the project, Rockshore International, a wholly Ghanaian-owned company, has been selected as the partner and has already started work to develop the Nyinahin Mpasaso Hills. The minerals resource estimate to confirm the quantity and quality of the bauxite is being undertaken this year, after which the refinery design will follow for the establishment of an aluminum refinery in Ghana. Deaths from COVID so far have totaled 1,445, and the total case count as at yesterday, the total cases in Ghana was at 42 cases. So we have managed the COVID very well, and the expenditure was necessary for us to do so and to save lives. Some commentators and analysts have argued that the COVID expenditures could not be the only reason for the large fiscal deficit that was recorded in 2020 and 2021. In fact, I agree with this view because the data supports it, and I'll show you why. Comparing the fiscal deficit in 2020 and 2021 between Ghana and other sub-Saharan African countries, the data shows that COVID expenditures alone were not sufficient to explain the increase in our fiscal deficit. The fiscal deficit to GDP in Ghana increased by threefold compared to 1.23 for Nigeria, 1.02 for Egypt, and 2.43 for Cote d'Ivoire. In addition to COVID-19, there were two major items of expenditure. In addition to COVID-19, there were two major items of expenditure that are critical to understanding the evolution of the fiscal deficit and the debt stock: the banking sector cleanup and the energy sector excess capacity payments. The data shows that the three items, when you look at COVID expenditure, the banking sector cleanup, and the excess capacity payments, amounted to 50.1 billion Ghana cedis. That is the equivalent of some $7 billion for just these three items. And the rising price of oil has resulted in the prices of fuel going up across the globe, with petrol prices doubling in most countries. In fact, in the world today, the highest petroleum prices can be found in countries like Hong Kong, the Netherlands, Zimbabwe, Germany, Israel, and the United Kingdom. The global increase in fuel prices is causing hardships in even the most advanced economies like the United States of America. Global inflation is on the rise, as I said, in many advanced economies like the UK and the USA, who are experiencing their highest inflation in 30 and 40 years, respectively. Africa's largest oil producer, Nigeria, is experiencing fuel shortages, as you can see the queues for fuel on the screen. They are experiencing high food prices as well as power outages. Food prices are rising sharply in Algeria, and there are shortages there. There are food protests in Spain over high fuel prices, food and electricity bills. In the UK, consumers are complaining about energy bills, higher taxes, the water bill, higher national insurance, higher broadband charges, and so on. In fact, the entire Eurozone is also feeling the pinch of rising prices. Ladies and gentlemen, indeed, the data shows that in the UK and the US, for example, inflation is accelerating at 3 to 4 times its rate in 2019, before COVID. In Cote d'Ivoire, inflation is accelerating at 5 times its rate before COVID-19. In Nigeria and Ghana, inflation is accelerating between 1.3 and 2 times the rate before COVID. The path of inflation in Ghana has been similar to those of other countries following the COVID pandemic. Inflation had declined from an average of 17.5% in 2016 to an average of 7.2% by 2020. Since the pandemic, however, inflation has increased from an average of 7.2% to an average of 10% in 2021. As at February 2022, inflation rose further to 15.7% as a result of global conditions, including a rise in crude oil and other commodity prices and the Russia-Ukraine conflict. It is important, ladies and gentlemen, to note that between 2013 and 2016, inflation averaged 15.9%. Between 2017 and 2021, however, inflation averaged 10.4%, notwithstanding the impact of COVID. Food prices have also not been left out. The Food and Agricultural Organization, the FAO Global Food Index, Price Index, increased from 95.1 at the end of 2019 to 140 in February 2022, an increase of 48%. The increase in commodity prices has been exacerbated by the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Russia and Ukraine together account for 30% of the global wheat exports. The longer the conflict ensues, the greater will be the disruption to global food supplies. The conflict is also likely to slow global growth. According to the African Development Bank, the price of wheat has shot up by 62% since the war began, and the price of fertilizer is up by 300%, and the price of maize is up by 36% since the war began. Here in Ghana, 60% of our total imports of iron ore and steel are from Ukraine. Russia accounts for some 30% of Ghana's imported grains, 50% of flour, and 39% of fertilizer. So, we are directly affected by the Russia-Ukraine war. Unfortunately, we do not know when it will be over. We talked about moving the economy from a focus on taxation to a focus on production. Ladies and gentlemen, as part of measures to get the economy back on track when we had these challenges, and to improve domestic revenue mobilization and improve efficiency, government has increased a number of taxes. We extended the National Fiscal Stabilization Levy and the special import levies from 2020 to 2024. We imposed initially a luxury vehicle levy, which was later abolished. We increased the CST from 6% to 9% and later decreased it from 9% to 5%. We increased the national health insurance levy from 2.5% to 3.5%. We introduced a sanitation pollution levy of 10 pesos on the price of a liter of fuel. We had the energy sector recovery levy of 20 pesos, a financial sector cleanup levy of 5%, and recently the introduction of the e-levy of 1.5% on financial transactions. In fulfillment of our manifesto promise to move the economy from a focus on taxation to a focus on production, we have so far reduced or abolished 18 separate taxes and levies, and most of them were manifesto promises. No such broad-based reduction in taxes has been implemented by any government since independence.
All right, so those were excerpts of some of the things that the vice president said when he was addressing TESCOM members in Kaswa as part of a training and orientation workshop, which was put together in collaboration or in conjunction with the Dankwa Institute. Now, let me introduce my guests for the show today. So, I do have the Honorable Kweku George Ricketts Hagan. He is the Member of Parliament for Cape Coast South. He's with us this morning. Good morning, sir. Thank you very much for joining us. Yeah. It's a pleasure having you. This is the first time you are appearing on Inside Pages.
I believe so.
Yes.
Well, I have been here probably
on a different program.
On a different program.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Right. This is one of the
This is the first time I'm actually meeting your table.
Right. Right.
So what shape is this? Is it
what I can tell you is that this is one of the biggest current affairs shows I'm making.
Yeah.
So
I mean, sitting here with you is like sitting with Putin.
That's true. It's long table.
Oh my God, Putin power. I don't want to be associated with it. I mean,
You've seen his table.
I know. It's very big, very big. Anyway, so we have Good Morning Ghana, we have Good Evening Ghana, and then we have Inside Pages. It's one of the biggest current affairs shows. It's only 6 months old, but it's now become a show you can't afford to miss every Saturday morning. Also because of the times, 8 to 10. So that's it. And then my very good friend, we're all schoolmates back at Legon. That's the man people call him the Miracles Man. I mean, I think he does a lot of miracles. That's Dennis Miracles Abuaje. He's officially the director of local governance and decentralization at the office of the president, but he's also, he supports his party with communications as and when he has the time. And so it promises to be a very interesting conversation. Now, we'll be joined on the line by Professor Lord Mensah at some point. He's a lecturer in finance, University of Ghana Business School. He also has very interesting thoughts to share on the vice president's engagement with the media. And then at some point, Dr. H.S. Sikanku, he is a political communication analyst. Now, he has been analyzing the vice president's speech, everything that has to do with both verbal and non-verbal, and he has very interesting analysis to also do as far as what happened in Kaswa is concerned. So Dr. H.S. Sikanku will also be joining us at some point. In fact, he may be doing a PowerPoint presentation, I'm not too sure, but I saw him putting a lot of stuff together. So that also promises to be very interesting. That's a very different and a very exciting aspect or angle to the conversation. So let me start with Miracles Abuaji. In fact, they organized this event. So I think, to be fair to them, he will tell us what the thinking or the idea was and why did they settle on the vice president, for instance, to address a lecture on the economy. Did they tell him to address the lecture on economy, or the vice president himself decided to do this? So Miracles, good morning once again. It's good to see you.
Good morning, my brother.
So what was the event about, the event that happened in Kaswa? Because you're one of the moderators, actually.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Yes. Let me say a very warm good morning to the Inside Pages viewers.
Right.
And to Honorable Hagan. And to yourself.
Thank you.
And apologies for doing Zoom the last time and
Yes,
not coming around
you're
the
supposed to
table.
be here.
And then a very warm good morning to my Equiapim North people.
Okay.
You know,
Are you eyeing that seat?
no, you know I was a former MC in Equiapim North.
Yes, but I don't know whether you are.
No, I am not.
You never know.
So this is on record.
I am not.
This is on record.
Said the I is here.
I
at the
hear you,
moment.
Mate.
Tomorrow I don't know where the I will be. You're asking me if I'm I. At the moment the I is here.
I hear you.
You know.
You mean anything can happen?
Exactly.
All right.
So the Dankwa Institute and the National Youth Wing of the New Patriotic Party decided to put together a capacity building program for the tertiary student confederacy of the party.
Right.
It was a 2 days event, which was ongoing at the Pentecost Convention Center, Kaswa.
Right.
And the youth wing extended an invitation to the Vice President of the Republic. Of course, he's a member of our party, to grace the occasion and give some words of encouragement to the young students of the party. The Vice President decided that he would take the opportunity to address the nation on the very, very important, crucial subject of the economy. And that is how this whole event came about. You know, this is not the first time Dr. Bawumia is doing this. Every now and then, he takes advantage of certain occasions to speak on some critical national issues. Even when we're in opposition, he was invited to the Central University, and on that platform, he used that platform to address the nation on the economy. Recently, he did one with Ashesi University on digitalization and digitization and what have you. I, for one, was very excited, very impressed with the Vice President delivery on the day. We should give it to him. He was fasting, and he had to do almost over a 2-hour, statement.
You should have perhaps spared him with the trouble of having to address the media, address Ghanaians for 2 hours for somebody who was engaged.
It comes with the job.
Fasting.
And if you need to address all the issues, and it takes 2 hours, you should address the issues. You know, one of the things that excites me.
He couldn't have waited.
Well, it could have been earlier, it could have been later, it could have been 2-3 days ago.
Right.
But the point is that every now and then, when you feel that it is time for you to address the people and the subject matter, you could go ahead, to do that. So I found it quite interesting. But for me, what was quite intriguing is the issues that were raised and the statement. So the Vice President basically did 3 things.
Okay, so but before you go there, could it also be, and you've got to be honest with it, and if that's the case, why not? Is it possible you also invited the Vice President also based on the clarion call which was being made on him to talk because of the state of the economy? Opposition figures were asking, where's the Vice President? In fact, at some point, people were saying, in fact, we heard the former President John Mahama who says, where is he? Where is he hiding? We want to hear his voice on the economy. And of course, some other social commentators, social media, etc., who were saying, where's the Vice President? He's gone. In fact, there's an NDC, member of the NDC's communications team, lawyer Bichi Sanan, who said maybe the Vice President has developed some sore throat, and so he's been very quiet. Could that pressure have informed the TESCON and Dankwa Institute's decision to invite the Vice President to say, look, the guys are giving us too much pressure, come and talk?
Was it pressure that got Dr. Bawumia to speak to Central University when we were in opposition? Was it pressure that got Dr. Bawumia to speak at Ashesi University? Did Ashesi University invite Dr. Bawumia to come and speak at that function where he addressed a national issue, major economic national issue of digitization and digitalization? Was it pressure? For me, even if it was pressure, we should give it to Dr. Bawumia. Because since when did we realize that vice presidents could speak on economic issues? Hitherto, until Dr. Bawumia came to office, we were always waiting on the president to go speak to us at SONA, at Parliament, and address these economic issues. He is the only vice president in the history of our fourth republic democracy that has been tagged, held onto by the citizenry and the people that you can speak on the economy, you understand economics, you speak on the economy, and the ordinary person in my village at Mfrano or in my community in Abejede Latte is able to relate, connect, and understand. Dr. Bawumia in opposition and in government has been the only vice presidential candidate and vice president that whenever he says, I am going to address the people of Ghana on economy, even the market woman at Malata closes early to go and sit by their radio or watch their TV and listen. Let's give it to him. If former President Mahama says that Dr. Bawumia is gone into hiding, for me, I take it as a compliment, because then we have a vice president that, for the first time in our history, the people acknowledge has the capacity to address the people and address economic issues of the nation. I don't think the issue has to do with who is calling him to come and speak, who is pressurizing him to come and speak. The issue has to do with the fact that we have a vice president that all of us universally, collectively acknowledge that he is an authority on the subject of economy.
Okay.
And when he speaks, both opposition, civil society organization, world, global, economic institutions listen to him, they pick his notes and try to analyze. That, for me, I think is what is critical for us to look at. And it is something that we should hold dear to our hearts as a people. I don't think under former President Rawlings, we saw any vice president, take the center stage when it comes
being
to
this vocal.
issues like this. Yes.
Right.
I don't think we saw that under former President Mills when former President Mahama was the vice president.
Right.
I don't think we saw this even under former President Kufuor when former President Vice President Aliyu Mahama was vice president.
Perhaps it's a matter of style, isn't it?
No, I think it's a matter of authority and understanding of the issues. Dr. Bawumia doesn't just come and speak on economy and speak as vice president.
But Emisata was the central bank governor
Yes.
when Dr. Mahmoud Bambi was his deputy.
So that even highlights Dr. Bawumia the more, because then that tells you that we've had a vice president.
Are you suggesting, for instance, that Emisata, if he wanted to deliver a lecture on the economy, couldn't have done
He
that?
did a couple of times.
Yes.
He did.
So that's what I'm saying.
But the euphoria,
Okay.
the attention from global economic institutions, local economic experts, civil society organizations, we shouldn't take that away from Dr.
Okay.
Bawumia. He's got it. He had it even whilst in opposition.
Right. So we're not going to belabor that because you want to get into the meat or the substance of what the vice president said. And in fact, you were just about to tell us about how you, in your view, the vice president structured his speech on Thursday. So if you can walk us through that.
So I think that what the vice president did was to take us through the economy, tell us where we have been, where we are now, and where he and his team, and under the leadership of the president, Adam Akufo-Addo, has taken this country in the midst of all the economic challenges. And if you watch and listen carefully to his speech, you realize that the first thing he did was to acknowledge the importance of the discussion that is ongoing locally and globally on the economy, and also acknowledge the challenges that we find ourselves in as a country. That was the first thing, is it?
Right.
First speech. It
That's
was the
fine.
first acknowledgement that he did. And he acknowledged the fact that we are in very difficult times, not extraordinary times. I don't think we are in extraordinary times as a country right now, if we
Okay.
compare it to some of the experiences we've had as a people.
Okay.
But we are in difficult times, especially under two crucial indicators.
Right.
Fuel prices and then the exchange rate.
Exchange rate.
These things affect the basic lives of all Ghanaians. And so that is the first thing that he did. And then he took us on a journey of where we used to be. Because you see, immediately you tell me that Ghana is hard, then you can't tell me that I shouldn't compare. Because before you say something is soft or hard, then you are comparing it to an experience that you've had in the past.
Right.
And so anytime people say it is hard, and then you try to create the comparative, and I say, why are you comparing it to the past? We can't do that. You cannot say it is hard or soft without looking at what it is that you had, before. And that is why the vice president took us on the journey. Before 2017.
Aren't you one of those who think, before you talk about, before the vice president took us on the journey, you don't agree with those who think that these kinds of comparisons it only amounts to mediocrity, which is that if I promise to give you five mangoes, and I give you 3 mangoes, and I complain, why are you giving me 3 mangoes? And you say, but somebody gave you 1, or somebody gave you 2. That kind of exercise doesn't move the nation forward, does it? I mean, you promised to give me 5 and not 3.
It does.
So
Actually,
that kind of comparison, I mean, some critics have a serious issue with.
you know, I mean, I'll be surprised if any critic would say it is hard or it is 5 and doesn't want to compare it to what it was. That is what economics is about.
The comparison?
Yes. Economy, even in our pockets, in our daily lives, it's all about where we used to be, what we used to have, and what we have now. Even at home, you are paying school fees. You have 3 children, and you pay fees for all 3 of them. If one graduates and starts working, it has a direct effect on how your lives will be at home.
Right.
Okay, because then you are paying one less fees. You are paying just for 2 people. So it will be very, very difficult for us
not to engage in comparison of records.
Of records. Not necessarily against any regime, but of records of what our lives have been. Because you see, if I tell you that I'm going to build you, if I tell you that I'm going to build you, if I tell you I'm going to build you a 6-floor tower, okay, and then I have done a 4-floor tower, and I have 3 years to go. You have 2 options. Either you allow me to take you on the 3-year journey, so I give you the 6, or you ask me why I am at 4. Immediately you ask me why I'm at 4, I'll tell you 2 things. I have 3 more years to go. Let me finish, then I'll take you to the 6th floor. Or I'll ask you, you used to be 1, you are at 4. It tells you that I am making progress. I am not retrogressing. So you should have confidence in me that I can take you to the 6th floor. I think we need to reduce the sentiment, we need to reduce the emotions, and then become a bit more analytical.
Isn't the talk about progress also relative? Relative in the sense that the people's living experiences may speak differently to the data that, for instance, you government officials like to throw out all the time. And because you see, you can put out all the data you want to put out. But if I used to buy bread at 1 cedi and I'm buying bread at 5 cedi, the data that you put out in terms of debt to GDP, in terms of, how do you call it, the fiscal deficits, in terms of the net international reserves, and all the macro indicators that we like to talk about. It isn't the micro that which matters more to the people rather than the macro, which by and large appears to be what we like to focus more on. You see, because you talk about we have made progress, but that progress is something that must be subjected to the living experiences, the reality of the people. You know, I mean, if you speak to an ordinary taxi driver who will tell you that, well, some time ago, and back to the issue about comparison of records, once upon a time, I used to buy fuel at X amount. Today, I'm buying that same amount of fuel at Y amount. Now, when you tell that person that, look, yes, I acknowledge that you're buying it at Y amount, which is probably twice, 3 times, or 4 times what the person used to buy it. But then you come back to tell the person that, well, it could have been Z, but for this person's intervention, the person won't understand that kind of language.
Okay.
So that's what I'm saying, that the comparison of records is something that's a little tricky. But anyway, you can talk about, you can walk us through the journey.
You see, we cannot run away from
right.
it.
You still insist that the comparison of records is important.
Yes, and I also insist that the macro is what determines the micro.
Absolutely, that's true.
The micro can never, ever be in isolation.
Right.
And so if you are going to look at the micro, you should always lift your heads up and look at macro. And I'll give you quick examples. You go to Zimbabwe, totally collapsed at some point.
Right.
Okay, it was almost like a dead zone in terms of the economy. Places like Sudan, South Sudan, and so many other countries that we can point to. Okay, there are other countries that have also been on that same, trajectory with those countries, and they managed to turn around and didn't get there. And so if such a country tells you that, listen, you could have gotten here, you could have gotten to the point where your money becomes completely worthless, and that your 10,000 cedis cannot even buy a loaf of bread. But for A, B, C, D interventions, you're able to now buy your bread at 15 cedis. You should acknowledge it. Okay. That notwithstanding, just before we come into the details of what the Vice President said, let's admit that if we are going to analyze the economy, not doing propaganda with it, okay, then let's do it the way the MPP did it when we were in opposition. Okay. The figures, the details of the economics behind it, the debates behind the discussion can differ in terms of opinion, but the facts should be stated.
That's fine.
So what you do is that you state the facts.
Okay.
Those are the figures.
Right.
That cannot change.
So in summary,
nobody can run away from that.
That's fine.
And then we will debate the opinions and the divergent views as to how things could have been and what, I have no problem with that. We can always disagree on what we believe things could have been, how we think things could have turned out, and all of that, based on our opinions.
Okay.
But our opinions cannot change the facts.
Right.
And we shouldn't say that, well, because we differ on opinions, we should put the facts and figures aside. Let's state the facts.
Right.
Let's admit the facts.
Okay.
Let's acknowledge the facts, and then we can discuss what we think could have been or couldn't have been.
All right,
I think
so
that would be fair to the people of Ghana.
I get the point. So, in summary, what is the vice president expecting us to take away from the 2-hour lecture he delivered?
The vice president basically said one very important thing.
Okay.
That irrespective of all the challenges that we're experiencing in the global economic space, which is affecting Ghana as well, we still are doing better than we used to do under the previous regime.
Right.
That is fundamental.
Right.
And the reason why the vice president will make such a reference is because the previous regime is at the table. They are churning out figures.
Okay.
They are putting out their views and opinions. And so once you're at the table, you are churning out figures and you're putting out your views and opinions. That must be addressed.
Okay.
Because Honorable is not here to simply come and say things and go away. He's here because he wants to address the issues and appeal to the people of Ghana to hand over power to him and his party for them to run. Basically, that's fundamental.
Right.
Okay? That is what we do as politicians.
Right.
Because what we are trying to do is to sell our views, our ideologies, our principles to the people for them to buy and hand over the governance to us for us to lead.
Okay.
What we are saying is that we think that Ghana is in better, safer hands in the MPP than the NDC, because if you look at all the indicators, why? Why did we change the NDC in 2016? Wasn't fuel prices high? Wasn't inflation high? Wasn't interest rate high? Wasn't the exchange rate high? Wasn't a lot of Ghanaians dropping out of school as a result of inability to pay? Didn't we cancel social services? Didn't we put a freeze on unemployment? These are the realities under which the people of Ghana voted the NDC out and handed over power to the MPP. So if we are going to analyze this, then we first of all have to ask ourselves, these things, for which reason the people of Ghana voted out the NDC, how are they doing under the MPP? And that's what Dr. Baumia is saying, that they are doing better.
Right.
Because before we came to power on the back of an economy where we're in complete darkness. We had run to the IMF with several conditionalities. They have told us that even the social safety nets that we've given to our people, we cannot continue. Allowances that we give to the poor so they can attend teacher training colleges were withdrawn. Our children who are graduating from basic school and were supposed to go to senior high school, over 100,000 of them every year were staying at home because they cannot afford. Because fees around that time was around 2,500 Ghana cedis average for a senior high school student, aside all the other things that they had to pay. Our national health insurance scheme was in huge debts, and for which reason the card was worthless. And so any citizen that goes to the hospital is not able to access it. We basically had no emergency system, almost non-existent emergency health care in this country. No ambulances available. They had broken down. They were not functional. We had the system in this country where there was complete darkness. And so this morning, as we sit here on Metro TV, you were supposed to go buy fuel to be able to power your generators.
But that was fixed in 2015.
No, let me. It wasn't. You cannot tell this way the Ghanaian.
No, but there's an energy commission report.
I am sorry, but that's
You don't
not
believe-
true.
you don't believe the Energy Commission report?
No, it is not true. I am sorry, but it is not true.
But we're living in this country, miracles.
As at February 2017,
Yeah.
there was energy crisis.
Yes, but I'm
So
saying
what are you
that
talking
no,
about?
it wasn't load shedding.
It was what?
Till today, we have energy crisis.
No, we don't.
Oh,
We do
look.
not. Let me tell you what the energy crisis that we had and the NDC was. Then you used to check. That's what you can use to check.
Right.
That was when you go home today,
Yes.
your light is off.
Yes, that was load shedding.
Since 6 a.m. And it will come back tomorrow at 6 p.m.
Yes.
And then it will go off on Monday
Yes.
at 6 p.m.
Yes.
and come back on Wednesday.
Right.
That is the sort of situation we had in January 2017.
No.
What are you talking
I
about?
lived here.
What are you talking about?
2015, it ended.
No, it's not true.
2016, there were still some intermittent
It
power
is a
crisis.
complete-
But that was not the same
It
as
is a
load shedding.
complete falsehood for anybody, okay, including yourself, to tell the people of Ghana who are watching you today that in this country, as of 2015, energy crisis was. In fact, when people were going to queue on 7th of December 2016, the number one thing on their mind, the number one game changer in 2016 elections was Doomso. What are you talking about?
But even
the
if-
NDC,
even
the
if that was
NDC
there-
would have stayed in power in 2016. if not for load shedding.
Even if Dumso was one of the factors that made the Etoile administration lose, it's possible because there was Dumso. But it doesn't take away the fact that in 2015, that problem was fixed.
It is not. How do you tell me a problem was fixed when a problem was persistent?
Don't do that.
No, bro, hold on. You see,
Don't do
I'm not
that.
the one doing it. Even the viewers are watching you. I'm sure they will comment.
Oh.
How do you
We're
tell
here.
us? No, wait. How do you? It's like Baumia telling the people of Ghana that exchange rate is fixed today. Because Bank of Ghana has given directives
Right.
that we shouldn't quote prices in dollar, and that they are having some arrangement with the BDCs to give them some auctions for dollar,
Right.
and so it's fixed.
Okay.
That is basically what you're saying.
All right.
Because for whatever reports you are referring to, you are referring to in the report,
Right.
then the amount of power that has been introduced, blah blah blah, but. There was energy crisis in December 2016, and that was why we went to queue to vote them out. If I can proceed,
Okay.
the viewers would be the best judge of
That's
that
fine.
particular
That's
position. So that is the sort of environment we found ourselves in. And as a result of the long-standing energy crisis, industries were affected.
Right.
Services were affected. People were laid off. Hundreds of thousands of factories were operating at half capacity. Some shut down.
Okay.
If you go to the industrial area in Tema,
Right.
you'd realize that some factories completely shut down because they were unable to produce, they were unable to operate.
Okay.
Even media houses in this country
Okay.
laid off workers as a result of that situation.
Okay.
All the indicators were that we're struggling as an economy.
All right.
If you give me the time along the line, I'll tell you the description that the IMF gave to the sort of economy that we had at that time. They said that as of 2015, 2016,
Okay.
Ghana's economy was in a worst downturn since the last 20 years.
All right.
That whatever we're going through in 2016 had not been seen for 20 good years.
Okay.
And the description that the IMF gave on the statement that they made finally before they advanced the $900 million IMF facility to us was the fact that the once vibrant economy that was thriving, that was a shining economy for the sub-Saharan African, was struggling and was seeing its worst performance in 2020.
Okay.
That was the situation we're in as at the time we came to power.
So let me
fast forward.
Right. Let me now bring in.
Is that where we are going to end? We'll come back
No,
to
no, definitely. I'll come back to you. Don't worry.
Okay.
Yes.
Because what I've given you now is just where we were.
Because Abwaji is a member of government's communications team. Don't worry, he's a friend of mine. So occasionally the bantering is normal. But anyway, so let me bring in the Honorable Kweku George Rikitegan. He's a member of Parliament for the Cape Coast South. So Honorable, I'll pick your general thoughts about what the Vice President said. But like Miracle said, the by and large of what the Vice President is saying is that, look, yes, things are tough, but no matter how bad our situation is, we still remain as the New Patriotic Party better managers of the economy, even with COVID and Russia-Ukraine fight. The indicators look much, much better than what you had in the past. Now, before you come in, let me just say that the WhatsApp line is 0500025621. 0500025621. So that's a WhatsApp line for those of you who want to contribute or you have any comment you want to make as far as this program is concerned. So, Honorable, please come in.
Thank you very much. And good morning to your viewers. And good morning to my brother Dennis and to you yourself. And I am enjoying my brother's contribution so far. But there is one problem.
Okay.
The problem is Dr. Baumia has become like a cheerleader for the MPP. You know,
That's what you have reduced him to? A cheerleader?
no, I'm not reducing.
Not in a negative sense.
I'm just,
Okay. All right.
Yeah. But he's become like the one person who cheers the MPP up
Right.
when they are down.
Right.
So that's why I'm referring to him as
a cheerleader.
As a cheerleader.
In that context, I get it.
In that context. He's an economist. He's got a PhD in it. So you will assume
Okay.
that he understands and knows what he's talking about.
Right.
But as a cheerleader for his party, you know what cheerleaders do? Again, I'm not reducing him.
Right.
if you take a football match, and I'm not talking about football as in soccer,
Right.
football as in American football,
Right.
you have cheerleaders who normally will cheer the team when there's a halftime or when there's a break or when their team is doing well. Many a times you have the cheerleaders cheering their team when they don't even know the score
Right.
on the scoreboard.
Right.
But their job is to cheer them up, cheer the fans, cheer the footballers
Right.
up.
Right.
And this is what Dr. Baumia does best for the MPP.
Right.
So when they are down, then they call him in or he brings himself in and then comes and do the cheering with a town hall meeting or a lecture at one of our universities or invited by somebody else to do that.
Okay.
And he has been consistent with that even before he became a vice president and ever since he became a vice president. It was not surprising that when things were down and people were looking for him, his own party was looking for him, he was found wanted. When we had a challenge, recently, and that is why people were asking, where is Dr. Baumia? There was you give it to him. He's been the most vocal vice president, since the beginning of the Fourth Republic.
Republican, right, Constitution.
Okay?
Yeah.
And then, of course, he happens to be an economist. Emisaka was.
Right.
But he's a different type of, has a different type of
He's a different
approach
breed of a politician.
Yes.
Right.
to doing things.
Right.
But His Excellency Dr. Baumia has become, very vocal
Right.
in the political and the economic space.
Right.
The problem with Dr. Baumia is that he cherry picks what works for him. Probably that's a good, a politician or, somebody making a point.
Right.
He cherry picks whatever suits him to make an argument that fits the type of argument that he's making.
Right.
And that the information that he uses and the way he uses the information is not always right.
Okay.
So there's a lot of, not that the information itself may be false,
Right.
but there's a lot of contradiction in the way he puts his statement across. And there is also inconsistencies. I'm talking about somebody who's an economist. There are inconsistencies in basically his deliverables.
Okay.
For that reason, over the years, it has undermined his own integrity and credibility in the eyes of Ghanaians. And that is why he has spoken so much on the economy. And when things were getting bad, people were just looking for him to get his views. When the e-levy was going on, yes, he did talk about e-levy, just in passing. But when the e-levy issue was going on, he was on record to have said that the e-levy was not a good thing,
Right.
and it was not good for poor people.
Right.
So one would have expected that Dr. Baumia will come and say that, look, I had this view at the time, but looking at the data, as he always refers to data, things are different now, and we think the e-levy will actually help us.
So basically, the circumstances have changed.
If that is,
If that's the word he chooses
Yeah,
to use,
yeah.
that's fine. Circumstances have changed. Yeah.
but he stayed out from the whole debate. We were not sure. Being the head of the economic management team, the finance minister would not have brought e-levy to parliament if he had not discussed it with the economic management team, of which he's a member and Dr. Baumia is the chairman.
Right.
So for him to bring the e-levy, when we know there's a contradiction between him and the view on e-levy, was quite problematic. And you would expect that as head, look, we've had a chat again on this e-levy. We've looked at the economic circumstance we are in. When I was talking about this, there was no pandemic, there was no Ukraine. Now I have a different view that we need the money, and therefore this is one area. He didn't come out to do any of those.
But there are two counter arguments to this. And sorry if I'm coming across as I'm belaboring that point, because I know you have quite a bit that you want to share with us. But the first issue is this: that one, isn't it safe to assume that the fact that the vice president has been silent on debating the propriety or otherwise of the introduction of this tax handle or tax policy should tell everybody and anybody that perhaps, and just perhaps, there has been a change of mind. I mean, he's been convinced that, looking at the economic circumstances that we find ourselves now, the e-levy is the way to go. He doesn't necessarily have to come out and say that, yes, I said something yesterday, but today I am saying this. Before persons like you would say, well, now I'm fine. Second argument is this. He says, and if you listen to that interview he had on Peace FM, he talks about the fact that Momo would impoverish the poor. Now, the government then comes out to tell us that, yes, paying a tax on an amount which is above 100 Ghana cedis would less likely affect the poorest of the poor. So they haven't departed in principle from what Dr. Mahmoud, because Dr. Mahmoud Bamia's fear was about the poor people. Tax them their momo, you make their situation worse. So we haven't done that, because now we're saying that if you're paying 100 Ghana cedis a day, you are not eligible to pay the momo tax. It's only when paying above 100. So nothing has changed. What do you make of these two counter arguments that I've heard from government communications?
I like the way you are speaking for him from a logical standpoint.
Right.
But he had made an emphatic statement.
So you need to hear him make another emphatic statement.
Yes.
Right.
Because you cannot assume that because he's not talking means that he's now for the e-levy.
Right.
Because discussions would have taken place. He was probably still against e-levy.
Right.
But he was probably overruled, and then the e-levy came on.
But that would be fine.
That shouldn't be a problem.
But then,
if there's a stronger argument than his argument,
okay,
and he had been overruled or a decision had been taken, it binds him.
Okay.
And for that reason, he should have been able to come out and say that, look, the argument put on the table suggests to me that the e-levy is probably accommodatable because of the challenges that we are having.
Right.
But if you don't say anything, when you had made an emphatic statement, if you had not spoken on the e-levy that strongly,
right,
people would have forgiven him.
So your point is that you cannot make an emphatic statement about your opposition to a policy, and then expect Ghanaians to assume when the policy has been passed as to whether you are for it again or not.
Absolutely.
You cannot expect us to do that.
You can't.
That's unfair to Ghanaians.
Where you are the chairman.
So come out and tell us whether indeed. So what has changed?
What
basically?
has changed?
All right, I get the point you're making.
Yeah.
All right,
But I understand,
Yes, I get it.
The argument from your perspective.
Right, but the other issue about we're not asking people who are paying more than less than 100 Ghana cedis to pay momo. So we're still not. We're not worrying them. So the government says we're not departed from Bamia.
If you made a statement and you were saying that, look, this thing is not good for poor people,
right?
And then people are saying that, look, this thing is coming on. The least you can say is that what is being presented to us now
is not different from.
It does not affect poor people in a way that I was explaining.
But that's tricky. The would say that.
The problem with making, and that is the problem sometimes when you talk too much, you find yourself in a difficult situation.
Right.
Because you may have to come and explain things. So people choose maybe not to say too much and watch the way things go.
Okay.
But then let's move on from there.
Sure, that's fine.
As I said, he's been consistently inconsistent with his deliverables.
Okay.
Now, I want to take you back to 2020 when Dr. Bawumia made a town hall presentation on the assessment of the status of MPP's 2016 manifesto promises. That was before the election.
Okay.
And Dr. Bawumia, consistently, as he's been, said a number of things that were contradictory statements. In fact, in the beginning of that statement, if you remember, he did say that they had 338 promises they have fulfilled 78% of it. That means that 300 was done. And then civil societies and other people came out and said, no, actually your policies were 510. So if you say you have done 303, then you have done only about 59% and all that. So that's the initial end. But when he made that presentation, and I'm coming to something that is quite interesting. When Dr. Baumia made that statement, that at that town hall, he said a number of things, about the economy and all addressing the same issues as he's been doing, trying to compare how the economy is better than theirs and all that. This happened on, I believe it was the 20th or so of February of 2020.
Okay.
So, no, 11th. 2 weeks later, normally when he comes out, then people are rushing to, obviously, as we are discussing Dr. Baumia's comment and all that. I'm sure he's enjoying it, or he's been enjoying it. And then things are said, and then it still becomes that Dr. Baumia said this and all that. So I sat down as an economist, took 2 weeks to look at his whole thing. And I looked at an approach that coming into a program and talk about it, somebody else talking. So let's engage Dr. Baumia in an intellectual discussion. So that led to me putting together 230 statements and questions for Dr. Baumia in an open letter. Okay? I don't know if you yes. Well, it's if you Google, I don't know if you ever. Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. You personally authored this.
Yes.
But you didn't send me a copy, Honorable. I'm supposed to be your friend.
Well, it's actually an open letter.
Okay, that's fine.
So, if though I handed the copies to him
at
the Flagstaff House,
right,
I also put it online.
Which year was this?
I did it in 6th of March, Independence Day
this year?
2020.
Okay, 2020, okay.
This was 2 weeks after Dr. Baumia had delivered his town hall meeting.
Right.
So this 230 questions, which is a 44 pages.
I see.
Is based on, it kind of disappeared. And obviously he never came back to answer any of the questions, any of that.
But when he also asked the former vice president,
sure,
170 questions.
The vice
president did not respond.
The vice president actually answered. Vice president actually answered, and the video clip is there.
Right.
Answered the questions and thought that some of the questions were actually not questions. They were not important.
Yes, I've seen that video.
Okay.
Yeah.
So his approach, was different.
Okay.
That some of these things were not questions. What does he want me to say?
Right.
Okay. But when the Dr. Baumia became a vice president, the vice president in Misata made a very interesting comment, which is still true today. He said, economic questions don't change over time. Therefore, Dr. Baumia should answer the questions that he asked him in Misata.
Right.
And that statement is true today. So, my motivation to ask Dr. Baumia these questions, and then they are not 230 questions. They're actually statements and questions.
Right.
I'll give you a copy of it.
Okay.
Because this will be updated. Because he still hasn't answered the questions. And the problems that we have faced since then, as a result of an exacerbated, what is it called? These issues being escalated.
Right.
Okay. Now, I'll just stick to just one, and then before we can go on with the discussion.
All right.
Okay. And that is to do with interest rates.
All right.
Okay. What I did with these questions was that I actually broke the questions down.
Okay.
So I have a section for interest rate,
right,
sections for inflation, fiscal deficit, Eurobond. It's all titled, all the way to jobs. Okay. Now, in his statement, they are saying that things were great up until 2019.
Right.
When things started getting bad because of COVID.
That's true. That's what he said.
That's not true.
Okay.
Because in 2019, the whole of 2019, the cedi was the worst performing currency, or one of the worst performing currencies in the world. Okay. This is before COVID, before Ukraine.
Right.
In 2019, it is as a result of the cedi being the worst currency in 2019 that in November of that year, His Excellency the President put together a foreign exchange development committee to deal with the issue of the cedi.
Okay.
How can a currency be performing well and a committee will be set up in November of that year to see to this matter? This committee became debatable because
You mean the committee that had the likes of Franklin Kujo and co?
Yes.
Right.
Because His Excellency Baumia himself was not added to that committee.
Right.
I don't know whether they were to report to him or not.
Right.
And then Franklin, if he's listening or something, will say whether they ever meet, which I don't think they did.
Right.
Now, what happened in that year, 2019, was that the cedi, and I will tell you something, the cedi became the worst currency throughout the whole of 2019 and started turning around the December to January of that year. And the reason was simply this. The reason was that in 2020, January of 2020, because of the year of return that happened in December and January of that year, a lot of currency, hard currency, dollars and things came into the system.
Right.
And helped the cedi to appreciate.
Right.
Because there was a lot of dollars and stuff in the system. Then followed that January to February and March,
Yep.
COVID popped its ugly head.
Right.
And it started in China, and most of the people who go and buy stuff and bring them in were buying them from China.
Right.
That halted.
Right.
And as a result, there was not much pressure
Right.
on the dollar.
Right.
So the dollar all of a sudden started depreciating against the cedi
Right.
because there was less demand on the dollar.
Right.
And people were not demanding it too.
Right.
So in January to March, which is the 6th March that I wrote this letter to Dr. Baumia,
Right.
the cedi has appreciated. After having depreciated in 2019 by 13%, which was the highest at the time, now we are beating that record.
I thought it was
in the-
12. I thought it was 12%.
No,
It's
13%.
13%.
12.9.
Okay, so 12.9. So
Yeah,
that's
13%.
Right.
I like rounding things off.
Yes, that's fine.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
So 13%. Then from January to the 6th March, when I wrote this, the cedi has appreciated by 6.4%.
Okay.
And the cedi all of a sudden, being one of the worst currencies, is now becoming one of the best currencies. This is what I wrote to Dr. Baumia.
Okay.
And listen carefully on this. Now, on exchange rate, I said, and then this letter just has basically an open letter to the Vice President, His Excellency Dr. Baumia, where I said, I listened to your town hall speech in Kumasi attentively and have since had the opportunity to read your full presentation. Mr. Vice President, with all due respect, I have found a number of issues raised quite disturbing and factually inaccurate. I do not agree that you are entitled, I do agree that you are entitled to your own opinion, but you are not entitled to your own facts.
Set of facts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now let's come to this issue. So the January I'm talking about, this is what I said. The latest summary of economic and financial data report for the month of January 2020 indicated a marginal improvement of the cedi against the major currency. Cedi against the dollar was 0.3, against the pound was 1.9, against the euro was 2.3. And I did say, I am sure you will agree that we are experiencing these recent gains after a serious, depreciation of the cedi.
Right.
As a result of temporary inflows
Right.
that came through the country during the holidays,
Right.
including the year of return
Right.
program during December and January.
Right.
To a large extent, the outbreak of the coronavirus in China, which has slowed down demand of dollars of imports from China.
Right.
Okay, now let me skip this bit and then give you this bit here. The foreign exchange, what was set up, obviously. Okay, now, hear this one. The cedi depreciated against the US dollar 13% in 2019,
Okay.
giving the worst performance in many years.
Okay.
The cedi, for most part of 2019, till the end of the year, was one of the worst performing currencies in the world. In 2020, at the beginning of 2020, the cedi started appreciating against the US dollar. and all other major currencies. Now it has become the best performing currency in the world, with 6.4% appreciation to the US dollar.
Okay.
Okay. Then I made a joke here. I said, those statements I have made in 12 and 13, because these two statements,
Right.
should tell you that you can never and never underscore arrest any currency in the long run, let alone the city, with a kind of BOG short-term intervention in the market.
Okay.
On a light note,
Okay.
let me draw you an analogy.
Okay.
It is like a part-time Christian fighting a full-time devil. Music by Kofi Kenata. I am sure you have heard it, Your Excellency. So all the things that I'm talking about are things that are the exchange rate is cyclical. It goes through a cycle because of the structure of our economy. The fundamental structure of our economy makes the city within it itself has a weak structure. And that is not peculiar to this government. It's been something that's been going on. Ghana being, a commodity-based economy. Ghana being a country that exports raw, commodities rather than add value to it. Ghana being a country that imports more than it exports, are all structural challenges that has put city in this particular way.
So then how do you juxtapose that against what the Vice President talks about? For the first time, we've recorded positive trade balance. I can't know economists. You can explain that to me.
Yeah. Let me finish with this.
I have to take a short break.
Okay.
Very short. Less than 1 minute.
Okay.
So please hold on with hold your thoughts.
Yeah.
This is Inside Pages on Metro Television. My name is Morad. I'm here with two very powerful, very intelligent guests. The Honorable Ricketts, Kweku Ricketts Hagan, is the Member of Parliament for Cape Coast South. Also former Deputy Minister during the Professor Mills regime. And then also, during the Mahama regime, sorry about that. And Miracles Abuaje also speaks for, he's also a member of the government communications team. When we come back, we will continue with this conversation. Remember that this show goes all the way till 10, and I have received some of your messages. So when I come back, I'll get Honorable Ricketts Hagan to wrap up on his thoughts, and then Dennis Abuaje will come in. Please stay tuned in. Don't go anywhere. Well, thank you very much. Thanks for your patience. We appreciate it. This is Inside Pages on Metro Television. My name is Morado. We're unpacking the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia's lecture that he delivered in Kaswa at a TESCON Dankwa Institute organized event. And I do have the Honorable Ricketts Hagan, who is the Member of Parliament for Cape Coast South, and also Miracles Abuaje, who is the Member of Government's Communications Team. So you don't want to miss it. The WhatsApp line is 0500025621, 0500025621. If you have any questions or comments you want to make, please feel free to do that. So I also did indicate in the next 15 minutes or so, we'll get Dr. H.S. Kanko to end the show for us. He has a very beautiful analysis he intends to make about the Vice President's posture in the way he communicated to Ghanaians. Where he got it wrong, where he got it right, he'll tell us all of that. Or he got everything right. And if indeed he's magnanimous enough, you mark him over 100%. That's if he wants to do that. But the Honorable Ricketts Hagan was on the floor when we went on that break. So he's going to continue. And then after that, we'll speak to, just for a few minutes, and then we'll speak to Professor Lord Mensah, who is a lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. He's a lecturer in finance, so he also has general thoughts he want to share on the Vice President's lecture, and then we'll let him go, and then we'll come back to Dr. H.S. Kanko. So, Honorable, you were on the floor, so please.
So the point I'm
proceed.
trying to make basically is that all the things that Dr. Bawumia said last Thursday are things that I have challenged him on with this letter.
So then you should be happy.
Well, I have challenged him on, and he's not actually delivered. He did not answer the questions.
Right.
And he's talking about the same thing.
Okay.
So let me just finish with the exchange rate here.
That's
and
fine.
all that.
Okay.
So another thing I said to him, because as I said, the exchange rate problem that we have at the moment is as a result of the structural weakness of the economy
Right.
and the city itself.
Right.
Okay? The other part is to do with the way we have managed the city, and that I bring central banking. The third issue is external shock, which you cannot do anything about.
Right.
Which is what has happened to us now.
Right.
And I told Dr. Baumia before the pandemic and before that, and listen to this bit. I said, Your Excellency, the volatility of the exchange rate market in general and its exposure to external shocks, coupled with the city's own structural weakness, makes it impossible to target it, especially with lightweight economic policies. Okay? So I have acknowledged the external, but the problem is that before the external shocks came in, the structural problem which has been there and our own management by the central bank, because we don't have enough reserves, and it's the reserves that we use in basically halting a decline, the Bank of Ghana is not able to effectively do what it needs to do with the exchange rate. And as we don't solve the other problems, like the structural problem and external shock problem, the Bank of Ghana is basically found wanted when we get into this situation, and they are not able to do much to that. So here I said, so please, and then at that time when he came to speak, he was talking about how they have arrested the CD and all that.
Right.
So I said to him, so please, when it comes to exchange rate, let us not be quick to boast about gains or losses, because they tend to be very fluid. We should not get carried away by these small gains, because they are temporal and may depend on the factors we don't control.
I see. That's prophetic.
Yeah, and that's what's happened today.
Exactly,
That's why
right.
I have brought this up.
Right.
Now, I went on and
So
I
the
will
point is,
end with
it
this.
is too early to jubilate.
Yeah,
Be careful.
yeah,
And that there will be a reality check.
yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Right.
Now, there are other things if we get time to talk. Otherwise, you hear me very soon with these things again. I did say to him on the deficit and debt that with all due respect, I am challenging the government fiscal deficit on a cash basis. The 4.8 or 4.5 you have quoted is untrue. I can appreciate your government effort in trying to stay below the fiscal rule of 5% under the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2018, but it must be earned and it cannot be engineered. I went further. Where I'm going to end with is that, in fact, this is 39. In fact, I am contesting both 2018, 2019 fiscal deficit of 3.7 and 4.8.
Okay.
Both deficits should be 7, which is about the fiscal rule of 5%. Therefore, a breach.
Okay.
Now, I supported this with data where I actually calculated,
Okay.
and you can see here from the budget,
Right.
I calculated what the deficit should be with data, and was contested that if you disagree with my calculation, you should let me know. And to date, I have not heard from the vice president, but he's using the same figures
Right.
as he did in 2020
Right.
to make a presentation in 2022
Right.
that we did better, we had all our indicators were this, were that.
Right.
The indicators were not so.
Right.
The deficit was around 7% each year
Right.
from 2017 and 2019, and not the 3.7 and the 4.8 that they make us believe.
That's interesting. The Honorable Ricky Hagan is the Member of Parliament for Cape Coast South, former Deputy Finance, Economic and Finance Minister under the Etwa Mahama regime, and he's given us his own take about on the Vice President's lecture that he delivered in Kaswa at that TESCON event. Now, we will be joining Professor Lord Mensah. He's a lecturer in finance, University of Ghana Business School. I want to believe that he's joined us. Professor Lord Mensah, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, good morning, and good morning to our viewers.
Right. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. So what would you say generally are your thoughts about the Vice President's lecture?
Well, generally, I would say that the timing of the lecture is very, very important because of the context. It is an information to Ghanaians about the state of the economy, where the economy is coming from, where it is now, and then where it is heading to. That is coming from an economic manager. I mean, the leader of the economic management team. And in economic dynamics, we don't play with timing of information because information triggers a lot of things on the market. So what the vice president unpacked, the last time, I would say that it was a bit late because looking at what is happening, I mean, Ghanaians have felt already, the impact of all those shocks, the economic shocks, like the COVID, the Putin effect, and, all the things that were happening in this country. And the impact is on the Ghanaians now. So effectively, the question that, everybody will be asking that what is new in the delivery? Because Ghanaians know that, prices are going up. Ghanaians knows that iron rods are up. Ghanaians know that, the COVID had effect. And normally in crisis, the leader always comes to address. Let's relate this to the COVID time. We saw the president, coming in at any point in time, giving us the strategic moves that the country is, putting in place to ensure that we are all safe. But did we see that from the vice president? Giving us the economic dynamics and the strategies that they intend to put in place. Yes, I admit that is part of most of the strategies because you can't take him out of the economic management of the country. Most of the things per the statute, he's supposed to be part of it. By the timing that he's coming up, I wonder whether he had wanted to make impact with the message that he gave us. And most of the things in the message rather came to demoralize Ghanaians, and especially the packaging of, our debt. In the speech, the vice president indicated that, but for COVID, the energy sector, and then, the banking sector cleanup, the economic, the economy would have been, doing well, pegging our debt to GDP around 60 billion. 60%. But the COVID, the energy sector, and then the banking sector cleanup came to increase our debt to about, 50.1 billion.
Yes.
But then the COVID is part of the economic dynamics. The energy sector debt, is also part of the economic dynamics. In fact, when you take over an economy as a manager, you inherit both assets and liabilities. So if you package, only the liabilities, you end up not communicating well. The reason why I'm saying this is that if you take the energy sector debt, for instance, we had cash flows tied to this, debt. That's why we had this ESLA and all those. And then, possibly the assets that we're paying for, if we are to own it in future, the possible benefits that it will give the country, we need to look at that. Those are the asset side of the debt. If you take the banking sector cleanup, for instance, we've cleaned the bank. And in the end, these banks had assets in place, which I believe receivers, have them on hand to sell some of them to offset this debt. Do Ghanaians know how much was retrieved from this bank? We only talk about how much was spent to save 4.5 million, depositors. So it is important, to package the data very well for consumption. Otherwise, if you continue to parade only the debt, you end up discouraging Ghanaians. And I'm telling you that the message that came out the from the president's speech rather came to discourage me as I sit here. Because I asked myself, so if we are carrying all this debt, where are we going? So effectively, we are managing an economy. And for me, we shouldn't look at, just the liability. The prospect must be spoken about as well. So effectively, I see the whole exercise as untimely, and part of the message that came was more or less something to discourage, the public.
Now, finally, he's come under criticisms for not proffering clear-cut solutions as to how, for instance, we can deal with the CD and how we can deal with the volatility that we keep seeing in fuel prices and so on. Are those who are criticizing him for that, do they have a legitimate point?
Yeah, let me correct this. Our exchange rate is never volatile. Our exchange rate is never volatile. The exchange rate is highly predictable because we know that every year we penetrate a new discrete number. So if last year you were at 6, this year you'll be at 7, the next year you're going to 8. It's very, very predictable because of the inherent structural, problems with our economy. Because if you follow the exchange rate patterns, you will see clearly some ups and downs, that comes in within the year. But every year it penetrates a new level. So effectively, it's highly, highly predictable, especially some of us with quant background. I mean, if you project it into the future, definitely you know that in the next 2 years, we are approaching 10. So 10 Ghana cedis per dollar. So effectively, it is highly, highly predictable. I mean, you can't say it is volatile.
Right.
Now, the solution to the problems, clearly, we are expecting that, okay, the measures that are being put in place, the possible impact on the economy, we should have come out from the speech. And that would have informed us the strategic, position of the economic management team. But clearly, it never came out well.
Just 1 minute, and if you can do this, I'll be very happy, Prof. Did you find the exercise of comparison with what the vice president says, even with COVID and Russia-Ukraine war, we're doing much better, to a previous regime, and he's specific from 2013 to 2016, and he uses all these indicators, the exchange rate, he uses there were macroeconomic indicators that he used in comparison to what is currently pertaining to what used to be the case from 2013 to 2016. Did you find that exercise useful?
Well, for me, I think I would be a bit, I would have been a bit quiet on that because economic memories fade. If you relate, what has happened in the last 5 years, and you're going back another 5 years, for me, I think I would have been careful a bit because every economic situation comes with, different dynamics. When the economy was being taken over at the time, how the economy was looked at, I would say that it was overly estimated, by the vice president at the time. He overestimated the economy, not taking into consideration, the possible shocks that will even come to an economy, fragile economy like Ghana, which immediately something is happening in Russia, quickly you start feeling the impact here, which immediately COVID strikes in, quickly you start feeling the impact immediately. That means your economy is well exposed to external shocks. And if you are managing an economy, all these dynamics are part of it. In fact, how to measure, an economic manager's performance is how he sells, a country through, different hard times, So effectively, if you have been managing the economy and you've used expenditure approach to sail the economy through, difficult times. When we come out of the crisis, and then we look back, and then we see excesses in expenditure, then we know very well that maybe you did well or you did not do well. So effectively, I would say that that comparison, we should be slow on it.
Okay.
Because 5 years
Right.
down the lane,
Okay.
you should rather compare from when you took over and then how you've grown the economy.
Okay. Prof, thank you. Have a good day, sir.
You're welcome.
That's Professor Lord Mensah. He's a lecturer at University of Ghana Business School in the area of finance. So, Dennis, I'll get some quick reactions from you, and then Doc will end the 10 minutes. It's fine.
Great. Thank you.
Sure. Please go ahead.
So I listened to Honorable Ricky Hagan, and I mean, obviously, they usually, I know Honorable really actually wanted to dwell on his questions, but they will usually go on Dr. Baumia for a bit, about 70%, analyze him, which they should leave for Dr. Che to handle. You do.
Dr. Che will do that.
Yeah, Dr. Che is coming to handle that.
Right. No, but speaking of it, I need to probably introduce him. I have to introduce him. Doc, good morning. Good to see you. Right. So, like as I did indicate, Doc's job is clear cut. He's going to look more at the communications angle to what Dr. Mohamed Bamia did.
But Honorable Dems tried to do it for him. So, first of all, it's important. I need to establish that Dr. Bamia factored his views and opinions on e-levy before its passage. And that is why when we're introducing the e-levy, government was very clear that the e-levy was not just introduced in vacuum, that the poor and this country have been factored into the formulation of the bill before it's passed into law. Because the data analyzed showed that close to about 60% of the mobile money users fall within those who are doing less than 100 Ghana cedis a day. Data doesn't lie. So if the data is there and decisions are being taken on the data, it will be very difficult for us to admit speculative, conversations at that point.
That's fine.
For which reason, we can confidently say that 60% of Ghanaian mobile money users really actually are not affected by the e-levy as we have it, and that's pure data.
Right.
Now, again, to also respond to Honorable and, of course, probably Doc, I think that it's important that we spend time, pick the entire 129-page statement by the Vice President and go through it. Maybe after a week or two, we may be able to come back with a little bit, opened up conversation. Because I hear some of the comments and I see all of them here. I was there, I was a moderator, and I have the statement here. So I hear some of them and I'm like, they are all here. And you remember...
Give me 2 examples.
You remember, even you, when you heard Dr. Baumia mention it, you said, oh, he talked about it.
Right.
But the impression was created as if it wasn't even mentioned at all on all of you. But quickly, let me move to the CD depreciation point that Honorable made. If you listen to Dr. Baumia very well, this is what he said. He said the data shows a clear dichotomy for the depreciation of the CD between 2013 and 2016, and then 2017 and 2021. So he didn't just pick on, he didn't go on a cherry picking. He used a whole range of a period to analyze the situation. They said the city depreciating reached a high of 32.5% in 2014. Okay, I heard Honorable say that 2019 was the worst in many years. 2014 was 32.5%.
How do you explain?
If you say that, you let me finish. You don't take my 10 minutes.
Go ahead, please.
Again, if you say that, if you make a statement and say that 2019 was the worst in many years, when we have a very close by year, which had 32.5%, we will always go and compare. And unfortunately, uncomfortably, once you do that comparison, then you will have a few others who would not, appreciate it. But obviously, once it comes up, we'll have to do that. And then it declined to 9.7% in 2016, which was a good thing. They managed to move it from 32.5% in 2014 to 9.7%, good thing. Then the rate of depreciation further declined to 4.7% in 2017, before it increased to 12.9% in 2019, and then again declined to 3.9% in 2020. Now, the interesting thing here is this. I listened to Honorable, and that's the impression I got, was that they appreciate when it goes up. Oh, it's gone up. Why is it gone up? It's unprecedented, it's the worst. But when it goes down, they say, oh, because of A, B, C, D, that's why it went down. If it goes up, it's because of our effort. If it goes down, it's because of our effort. If the effort is inadequate, it will go up. If the effort is adequate, it will go down. So we need to understand that situation, the scenario. The Vice President didn't end there. He went on to give us a whole table of analysis of the performance of the city over the period. And this is where, for me, it's crucial for you to know whether when Honorable is coming up with his questions, He has the capacity to do that in the face of what they did under their government as against what has been done. Now, this is a government, and the Honorable served as a deputy minister. 1993-1996, the NDC, 27.95% average depreciation within the period. 1997 to 2000, 25.19% average depreciation within that period. 2001 to 2004, under the MPP, 11.04. That was the lowest within that period. 2005 to 2008, 6.77. The NPP beat their own record, the lowest. Then 2009 to 2012, when the NDC came back to power, they moved it again from 6.77 to 10.9. Then the NDC again in power shot it up to 18%. Okay, under the NDC. Now, between 2017 and 2021, the average depreciation of the city is 6.8%. These are figures that are in the Dr. Bawumia statement. So that's why I'm saying, let's all take our time, digest the statement, read it before we rush to come and make comment on it. He didn't end there. Okay. He went on to admit the unprecedented depreciation of the city in the first quarter of 2022. And in fact, went on to indicate that it is the worst and a very long time, since 2015. It is the worst for a first quarter depreciation of the city. And then give a table to give us the trend between 2013 to 2022. This, for me, are some of the things that when I hear others say he didn't do this, he didn't say that, I wonder, because he did. He admitted where the shortfalls were and went on to give an indication of where the
You mean he showed candor?
He did.
Okay.
It's all here. It's all here. The data is here. Then he didn't end there. I heard Doc said he didn't show how he was going to fix it. He did. He actually went ahead to explain how he was going to deal with the depreciation of the currency. And it's a whole subtopic. He's here addressing the depreciation of the currency. And it was shown on the screen. He mentioned that whole subject before he spent close to 8 pages in explaining how he was going to deal with the depreciation of the city. Okay. It is all here. And that is why I am saying that sometimes when Dr. Bawumia speaks, 2 things happen. The NDC, before he even speaks, and if you go and watch the Facebook calls of people like Felix Ofosu-Kwakye and the rest, you realize that before he even spoke, they had already started serializing what he's going to say and the answers they were going to give. Take your time. It's a 129-page document. Digest it, and you realize that all the questions Honorable Rickety Hagan is asking have been answered in this document, in the statement that Dr. Bawumia made.
Right.
Most importantly, Dr. Bawumia went on to say that, listen, we are in difficult times, and we have challenging moments. That notwithstanding, the figures and the facts as presented in the statement clearly shows that in our worst lowest point under this government in the last five years is way better. Our lowest point is way better than what we experienced between 2012 and 2016. Okay. And this is how I'll wrap up.
Right.
I'll wrap up by saying that Doc is here. Let's all admit. Let's say we voted. One of the reasons why we voted against the NDC was the exchange rate and then the fuel prices. Okay, so there was challenges, there was crisis. But you see, the difference between the MPP and the NDC, and this time we are going onto the street for the people in my village, that in the midst of the crisis, what do the 2 leaders do? In the midst of the crisis under the NDC, social services, the social safety net was taken away from the people of Ghana. Fact. Okay? Allowances that we give to poor people to go to school were withdrawn. There was a freeze on employment. Okay? Private sector struggled. There was not so much investment to support private sector for them to thrive, for which reason some of them wrapped up and they laid off workers. We had the situation where even the capitation grant that was supposed to go to basic schools for them to thrive, it was delayed. It was never increased. It stayed at 4 cities for a very long time. There was little investment in ensuring that our emergency healthcare was taken care of. In the midst of the challenges, let's even assume that the challenges are the same between the MPP and the NDC at this point. And we are all disappointed that you said you were going to do this and you haven't done it. The difference is here. We have fixed the emergency healthcare system. We have ensured that we reverse or give back the social safety net to the people of Ghana by ensuring that all the allowances that they need have been given to them. Under the NDC, that was when we saw picketing of nurses and teachers at the Ministry of Education and Ministry of Health because the government was not employing them. As we speak, there is no backlog. All the students who have passed out from these institutions have been employed. As we speak, the energy crisis, which was a financial challenge, because just as you rightly said, the Energy Commission indicated that there was enough power capacity. The challenge was there was no money to buy fuel to power this energy power plant. For which reason, don't cut me, let me end. I have 2 more minutes to go. I checked this. For which reason, industries shut down. Under this government, that situation has been fixed.
Okay.
As we speak, 100,000 of Ghanaian children who left school between 2012 and 2016, let's use that as 4 years, 400,000 of them cumulatively over the period dropped out of school. They couldn't continue to the senior high school. You know why? Because there was no money. Under this government, in the midst of the challenges, in the midst of the crisis, the government has ensured that the poor person's child and the rich man's child get the opportunity to sit in the same classroom by removing the number one barrier for progressing from basic school to the senior high school, that is cost. Again, under this government, we have ensured that if not for anything in the midst of the challenges, private sector has been supported to the extent that as we speak, 278 companies, factories, which Dr. Baumia has indicated as one of the reasons, one of the strategies to ensure that in the long term, once these 278 factories come upstream, and we are producing a lot of these things that we are importing from Europe and Asia and this country, it will help to cure the challenges that our city go through. For me, this remains the difference between the MPP and the NDC.
Doc,
You're not the
you are not. You are not.
I gave it to you.
You are not.
I gave everything to you.
Yes. So let's not
But
come
you
back.
can- you are
Let's not come back to the non-politicians.
I will not come.
The politicians have spoken. I mean, you are strictly an academic. Your area of expertise is in communication. Now, when you watch the vice president, what's your own take on how the vice president performed in terms of how he communicated to Ghanaians, and how do you intend to structure your speech or your presentation?
Right. Well, thank you very much, Moro. Good to be with you always. Hi to my co-panelists, and I've been listening, and to everybody at home. So, from a communication point, and of course, Dr. Lord Mensah was earlier on doing the whole economics thing.
Right.
When you look at it from a communication perspective, there are certain things that come along with giving the speech. Yes, there is the subject matter of the speech, which of course all of us are experiencing or feeling in the country, which is the economy or the state of the economy and the increase in goods and services and all of that.
Right.
But at the same time, communication is a central instrument or tool for public policy making. It is a central instrument or tool for governance and all of that. The fulcrum around which the business.
Right.
There's one scholar who says that communication is the epistemological basis of governance.
What does that mean?
It means that it is the methodology or the tool through which the business of governance takes place, especially in a democracy, because it has to be two-way to communicate.
Right.
And so sometimes you got to look at that part as well and see how the communication was done, how it went, what tools were employed, and really if it sat down well with the people. And in order to do that, there are three scholars, Trend, Frendenberg, and Blingzen, who came up with certain indicators or certain variables or parameters that you use to analyze speeches of different types. And he has about 4 or 5 parameters, 4 to 6 parameters, which he uses to analyze it, from a scholarly perspective. He said you got to look at the timing of the speech. You have to look at the location or the setting of the speech. You have to look at the demeanor of the person. Then you look at the rhetorical strategies that were employed.
Right.
And then you also look at the follow-up strategies.
Right.
And the communication can be both the rhetorical strategies and the non-verbal aspects.
Right.
After the speech, I saw a lot of people on Facebook talking about whether he was confident or not and that kind of stuff. So these were some of the parameters we can use. And to some extent, the content. A large extent, the content as well. But like I said, we've left the economists to deal with that.
Right.
If you look at the timing of the speech, Dr. Mensah says he thinks it was late or it was untimely. I beg to differ a little bit. If you place it, I know where he's coming from. President Akufo-Addo is the leader. No matter how you look at it, the VP is the number 2. President Akufo-Addo is the leader of the nation. If you look at it from a presidential communication perspective, he's right. At a point, I was saying if I was a counselor to the president or was a presidential advisor, I would have advised the president to come out and give a major speech or statement. At the time that there was, you remember at some point, the feeling was really high. in the thick of the Ukraine crisis, there was a point that prices were increasing, I think, every week or every other 2 or 3 days. Yeah, we were experiencing that, the fuel and then the transport. So he's right to that extent. I would have expected the president to come up at that point.
Okay.
Also, the State of the Nation address delayed a little bit. And if he didn't delay, he might have addressed that issue there.
Okay.
So I think to that extent, I can understand him. But as far as the context of the vice president is concerned, I don't think it was untimely.
Right.
This is the number 2 person. He's not number 1. So everything he does is mostly complementary.
Right.
Especially also because the president was there, the Minister of Finance was there, and then now we have the VP, who is the head of the economic management team. There was a lot of consternation about, okay, we've not heard from the vice president. When is he going to speak? We are waiting to hear from him. And he responded to that. If he had done it later than he did, the effectiveness of it would have been completely undermined.
So timing is key.
Timing is key. And I think he came out at the moment where the concern was. So I think to that extent, it wasn't too bad.
Okay.
So that's timing.
So now setting.
Setting, which is, or some scholars call it the location.
Right. Or the platform.
Or the platform.
Or comes under setting.
Thank you very much.
Right.
So this was the Pentecost Convention Center.
Right.
Okay. And what was the platform? It was the TESCON event.
Dankwa Institute.
Dankwa Institute. That is where I will fault them. Great speech, but the platform in which it was given, purely partisan platform. There's nothing wrong with the VP going to speak there. I mean, it's fine. It's TESCON. We have Tain and all of that. Sometimes they expect the VP or the president to come to ginger them up, to invigorate them. You know, there is a methodology for that setting.
Right.
And so to give an economic speech on that platform, I think camouflaged some of the importance or the credibility of such a national speech.
I see.
Yes. So you realize that automatically it gives it a certain partisan frame. And it wasn't a national event. So you see the supporters, what they did, they come on today, they are shouting, they are sloganeering, all of that. You saw what happened. They interjected him at some point, and he was taking a bit of a partisan disposition. But this was a national economic event in the midst of the rage, the anxiety.
Because both NDC and VP supporters and non-political people are all suffering the how do you call it, the adverse effects of the economy.
Yes.
So you needed a more neutral platform. That's the point you're making.
That's the point.
Okay.
I'm saying. Now we
come to demeanor.
We come to demeanor.
Okay.
After the speech, I mean, I was listening a lot, social media, commentary, and all of that. And
back to the setting. If you had said down at Academy of Arts and Sciences, Central University,
thank you,
UPSA, that would have been perfect. GIG, perfect, fantastic. Okay, so let's go to demeanor.
Yes. Now, demeanor. After the speech, I heard a lot of people giving reactions. Oh, this is not the usual Bawumia. Look at the way he was sweating. He was not energetic. He didn't have that gusto. I would disagree. I don't think that we saw anything different from the Bawumia we've come to know.
I see.
I think he had the same energy. He had the same enthusiasm. He was exuberant, especially if you really want to take it down. And, other places, they have machines and things that track some of these things. You look at where was he more forceful? Where was he more laid back? Where, when the tone goes down, it means I'm not confident with what I'm saying. But when the tone comes up, it's like, okay, this is... So you look at all these non-verbals, and then you use it to analyze.
Okay.
I think he had the same amount of passion or exuberance that he's always had, especially when he was speaking on the data. You realize that it is his area of comfort. So he used the data, the facts and figures to make his point. As to whether that data is true, verifiable or not, that's a different thing. And we have fact space and other people fact-checking it. Okay? And by all means, we should do that. But what I'm saying is that in terms of the methodology, the way of doing it, the rhetorical strategy, and in terms of the non-verbal, the demeanor, I think he had just an equal amount of energy or passion or enthusiasm as we've always seen.
Okay.
And if you look at certain points, when so let me pause there.
Okay.
The second rhetorical strategy, so I've talked about the demeanor in terms of the physical attributes,
Sure.
in terms of the tone
Sure.
and all of that. He was very forceful.
Okay.
And especially when he got to the data and the facts and
Right.
figures. So the second aspect of the rhetorical strategy is...
Follow-up.
No. Before I come
Right.
to the follow-up, I was going to talk about the use of facts and figures.
Right.
Okay. So the confidence and all of that is one, but even the use of the facts and figures as a persuasive tool, yes, to reach out to people was very dominant.
Okay.
The use of facts, figures, data as a communicative or persuasive tool was very high.
Okay.
The third thing when it comes to the rhetorical strategy is his use of repetition.
Right.
You realize that in order to emphasize certain things, he goes ahead and says, and I still don't understand why they don't get the link between...
Right. So they don't understand.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
don't
some-
understand. He repeats that.
Yeah, he repeats that several times. At some point, he says, for the first time, we have this and this
Yes,
and
yes.
this.
Unprecedented, right?
Yes, he states his point. That's, for communication people, I mean, that means you really want people to pay attention there. And you want that to remain on. If they didn't hear anything at all from the speech, they should remember that part.
Emphasis.
So purely, I'm not even looking at the party thing.
Right.
I'm just saying purely as a communicative thing,
Right.
tool or strategy.
Okay.
That was what he wanted to leave on the minds of people.
Right.
Yes, because one of the main concerns has been that why is he a digital? He's an economist. Why is he talking about digital stuff?
Right.
And I think just from a very professional, if I was even whichever president, he tried to respond to that.
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
Right.
As a tool or a strategy, he tried to respond to it. The last thing was the jabs.
Right.
And this is where people sometimes have an issue with him.
Right.
Both the NDC and other people.
Right.
Because he tends to get partisan when he uses the jabs.
Right.
Mentioning the NDC.
Can you relate that to the platform? Because of the platform.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying because of the platform,
Right.
it sometimes forces him
Yeah,
to do
yeah,
that.
yeah, right.
Which is not too helpful for a national issue.
Right.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. So those partisan things came up. And you see, sometimes, at this point, the more you talk about President Mahama, the worse you are doing for yourself, because people are now tired of that.
No, he didn't. He said 2013, 2016.
Yes, no, I'm just saying that the more you
it
make
doesn't make a
references, yes,
The past.
to-
And
yes,
that was President Mohammed's time anyway.
yes, you,
But this time he decides to not mention his name.
yeah,
He decides to go with period.
Yeah.
yes, but I'm just saying it's,
No, I can understand.
yeah, the effect is the
You
same.
see, it's not
thing.
helpful.
Yes, the more that happens.
Okay.
But sometimes I think the approach is to put some context to it, that this is where we were,
Right.
this is where we were. But I feel Ghanaians know that.
Got to move on.
Yes, gotta move on. Okay, so hold on,
Right.
hold on. So in terms of, I'll wrap up.
Right.
In terms of that,
Right.
so that was, and then the last part was the follow-up strategy.
Okay.
I feel this should have been a good platform to talk a bit more. I'm not saying he didn't, but to talk a bit more about the e-levy,
Right.
and to use it to even emphasize why it's important. Because after the president and the finance minister, don't forget, people still are not fully persuaded. And it doesn't end there. Public policy communication continues after the announcement of the policy. The last thing that I will say is that we need to, if you put everything into context, one thing that we have to observe or
Okay.
take note of is
Oh,
that...
I'm so sorry. I have to go. I'm told that. So just 30 seconds.
Just 30 seconds.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make the point
Right.
that our democracy is growing.
Okay.
And that we are moving away from the point where insult, vituperation, and other things are used as the methodological tool for public discourse, to a point where there's a focus on the economy,
Okay.
a focus on facts and figures and data, and the debate is on that and not the propaganda.
Okay.
And that is a good observation.
30 seconds, sir. To be fair to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just to correct actually
Right.
a couple of points made by my brother Dennis.
Right.
And that I actually didn't say that the 13% was actually the worst performance for many years. Because what I said was actually written. So I read it. I said the cedi for the most part of 2019 till the end of the year was one of the worst performing currencies in the world.
Okay.
The many years was about the first 3 quarters of this year.
Okay.
That I think we have gone about
Which he himself will attest to,
nearly
the Vice
20%,
President himself, right.
which is probably, for many years we've never.
The Vice President himself alludes to
Yeah.
that. He says
On
compared
the-
from 2015.
On what we did not actually get from this, and then Dennis is talking about 8 pages of this and that. Look, there are no real solutions that, for me, are huge enough to address the problems that we are facing.
Thank you.
That is my challenge.
Thank you, Honorable. Thank you very much. No, it's okay. Thank you very much. Let me say a very good morning to Sheriff Tete. Sheriff Tete, you're the son of Alhaji Ibrahim Tete. This one is coming from our programs manager, Uncle Nat, we call him. He says he wishes you well. Have a great day. And in fact, you're in charge of Crown Liberty in Aplaku. Yes, so Sheriff Tete, good morning. It's coming from our programs manager. Hope you're doing well. He wishes the best of the day. You are the one in charge of Crown Liberty. Thank you very much for watching. Let me say a big thanks to Dr. H.S. Kanku, who is a political communications analyst. I also want to say a very big thanks to my very good friend Darius, Darius, in this Miracles of YJ. He is a member of the government's communication team and also the member of parliament for Cape Coast South, the Honorable Kweku Ricketts Hagan. Good morning. Oh, okay, please get well soon. We need you to be healthy and alive. Thank you very much.